I got on here so I could talk about how I make my herbal teas. I'm gonna be displaying how I actually make my teas. It's super simple, it's not hard. This is for all the people that act like they need all these different appliances and things to make things. You do not. You don't need tea bags. You honestly don't really need a strainer, but the strainer really helps, like really helps. It's not that deep. I just wanted to show y'all how to actually make herbal tea, how to actually do a herbal tea infusion, because this is healing, this is medicine, and I think that we need to start living our lives like this. I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on nobody else. I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on any of y'all, but I do believe that herbs and herbal medicine is real medicine. That is the real healing. That is the real deal, honey. And the best way to consume them is through herbal infusions, the tea infusions. So I wanted to show people how to do the tea infusions. It's not hard as long as you know the appropriate ratio, and that's it. So first things first, I'm gonna talk about what I use. So I use a mason jar. I use mason jar, glass jars. I do not put my teas in plastic cups. Please do not put no tea in no plastic cup. We're not putting boiling hot water or warm water, hot water in plastic. Stop. Don't do it. Before you think you should do it, just think again. Plastic leaches off into whatever we're consuming. Even these bottles of water, I wouldn't put hot water. You wouldn't want this sitting in the hot sun and you're gonna drink the water out of it, because whatever chemicals are leaching from the plastic is going to go into whatever you're drinking. I use glass jars, glass mason jars for my teas. So I always have either a 32-ounce one or a 16-ounce one on hand. Now I have a little strainer that came with a teapot. I wanna mention this. You can get a teapot from Amazon, and if I find it, I can link it in my description box or whatever for y'all. But there is a teapot that I used to get. It's a glass teapot. You put the water in it, you put the herbs in it, you steep it on the stove, and it has the strainer inside. As you see in the video, I have this strainer that fits perfectly in the 16-ounce mason jar, and that comes from the teapot. The teapot cracked. It took a while. I had it for like a couple of years, so it took a while. But I haven't been around to get me another one yet. So I just been using the strainers and putting it in a mason jar, because I also have a water cooler that heats the water up and cools the water. And it's Mountain Valley water inside of the containers of the water cooler. So I just use that to make my tea. So I don't use a teapot. In the video, you're not gonna see me use a teapot. I have that strainer, and I also have the handheld strainer that you use to strain like pastas and stuff like that, but I have a smaller one, and I use that. And I call that the ghetto way. But that's not really the ghetto way though, because the real ghetto way to strain herbs out of a mason jar is to take the top. I didn't show y'all this, but dang, I don't have a mason jar in here. This is a candle, right? Just pretend this is a mason jar. The real ghetto way, ooh, that's kind of strong today. Okay, the real ghetto way is to take the top of the mason jar, the actual top that comes with the mason jar, and just like pour it, you know, you pour it out. Pour it out like that, and you holding it. Y'all know how to strain stuff, right? I ain't gotta show the world how to strain. We ain't got that far. We ain't that lost. I know we not. If I don't have a strainer, that's what I'm doing, and I'm just being honest. So what I like to do is I could take the top and strain the herbs out like that. It's a little more difficult because it's probably hot and you might burn yourself 9 times out of 10, and it's just not okay. But you gotta do what you gotta do when you don't have everything, and that's fine. You can still make it happen, is my point. But in this video, I have 2 strainers. I have the strainer that goes inside of the 16-ounce mason jar. Thank God it fits in there. It makes my life so much easier. And then I have the strainer that's handheld, and I pour the herbs inside of that to pour it inside the other mason jars. So that's pretty much it. When taking herbal infusions as a tea, right? When taking the herbal infusions or the herbal tea, the basic dosage that I learned about was 1 teaspoon of herb per every 8 ounces of water. I'm gonna say it again. 1 teaspoon of herb per every 8 ounces of water. So if I have a 16-ounce mason jar, I'm gonna put 2 teaspoons of herbs, because it's 2 8 ounces of water inside of a 16-ounce jar. 8 plus 8 is 16. And so if you got 8 and 8, that's 2 8 ounces. So you put 2 teaspoons in there. I'm breaking it down for the folks in the back that don't quite understand, and it gets a little tricky because I don't really see nobody making no videos like this. So I just feel like somebody might benefit from this for real, because I be seeing people in the comments of certain herbalist posts and stuff, and what's the tea instructions? How do I do it? How do I measure tea? The basic measurement for teas, and this is not if you go to an herbalist and they give you specific instructions on how to extract their concoctions. This is just a basic herbal tea infusion measurements. 1 teaspoon per every 8 ounces of water. You're gonna see that I put 2 teaspoons of herb in the 16-ounce mason jar because 8 plus 8 is 16, and 2 8 ounces gives me 2 teaspoons for that jar. So go over to the water cooler and I go and get me some hot water from the hot side of the water cooler. Then I put the top over the herbs, and you always want to cover it up because the herbs, you need all of the medicinal properties to stay inside of the container. I drink my herbal teas at room temperature. For people who are just starting off to take herbs, you don't want to drink them hot. If you don't detox, you don't fast, you don't take care of yourself like that, and you try to go take some herbs, good luck drinking them hot. You're gonna feel like you never want to drink that shit again. So I just don't, I don't think you should do that. Most herbalists do not recommend you to do that. You drink them at room temperature. You gotta be careful for real with that. Like, and it's no joking, like you really gotta be careful. So room temperature is the safe way. For the 32-ounce jar, I do the same thing. Instead of adding 2 teaspoons though, I'm gonna add 4, because 4 times 8 gives you 32 ounces. Or 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8, which is 8 4 times, gives you 32 ounces. Oh, I gotta break this down, honey. I'm gonna break it down. All right, so like I said, I have a water cooler, so it just automatically heats up the water. I'm not going to go and boil water on the stove because y'all know how to boil water on the stove. I'm not gonna do that. Take this, I already smushed it around, and then I just put this on top. And I let this one sit for, I think I'm gonna do 15 minutes. So I typically let them sit for 15 minutes. And that's another thing. Okay, so I seal it with the top and I let it sit for at least 15 to 20 minutes. 20 minutes max, because sometimes, like if it's like a blood purifier, it gets bitter. Bitter herbs. Some of them herbs get super bitter the longer you steep them. So I make sure I keep it in between 15 and 20 minutes, and then after that I strain it. So with the bigger mason jar, I didn't have the strainer to go inside, so I have the handheld strainer. So I put the handheld strainer over another mason jar, or if you really don't have another mason jar on hand, you can always use a pot from the stove and just put the strainer over that and just pour. And I have to use a napkin. So what I do is I partially wet one napkin, I wrap it, and then I put dry napkins on top of it, maybe like 3 or 4 dry napkins on top of it. And it's just so I can grip the container. That's why I have it a little wet. So I grip the container and then I'm able to pour it. Now before I pour it, I make sure I stir it up so that I can get all the herbs loose and they're not just sitting at the bottom of the container. That'll make my straining a little easier. So I do that and I pour it over. And as you can see, I pour it out into the strainer and it strains right into the other mason jar, and I push down to make sure I get all of the liquid out of the herbs. And when it's time for me to discard my herbs, I put them back where they came from. I want to say this again. When it's time to discard the herbs, put them back where they came from. Don't throw the herbs in the trash, y'all. They don't go in the trash. They're not trash. Please don't do that. Please respect your mother. Please do. I have to be an advocate for her because I am her and she is me, and we are working together in this lifetime, okay? Please do not discard your herbs in the trash. They do not belong in the trash. They belong outside. Throw them outside in the grass. There's grass somewhere around, y'all. Go throw them outside in the grass. And if you can't do it tonight, you made your herbs too late, put them in a container. I like to just put them in a glass container and let them dry out. Or, you know, the next day or something like that, when I got time or when I can, I just put them outside in the grass. They're always thrown in the grass. I always give back, okay? This is a reciprocity relationship between me and the earth. I give the earth back what they're depleting the earth of, okay? We're not gonna talk about that on this video, but your grass will thank you. It may not be in the ways that y'all are looking for it. You know, the grass is not gonna be like, hey, thank you, you know, but in other ways you'll start to see your life change. When you give back to Mother Nature what nature gives to you, and you have a reciprocity relationship, you don't just take. When I tell you, your life starts to be so abundant in ways that you would never imagine. I throw seeds outside in the grass. I throw my herbs back outside in the grass, okay? If you gotta drive up Century, go find some grass, and I guarantee you're gonna get paid back. That's how I discard my herbs too, because I think that's another thing I don't see nobody talking about like that. Like, when you're using herbs, don't throw them in the trash. They don't go in the trash. Or if you guys have plants, if you have plants in your house, put them in the pot. Put them in a pot, it's fine. Put them in a pot. Do not pour these things down the drain. Do not pour these things in the trash or down the toilet, okay? Don't do that. Don't, have some respect, please. That's all I ask, is y'all have some respect for nature. Please. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes, and that's it. The whole process takes maybe 30 minutes to do. And you have your tea. And I'll do another video on the herbalists I recommend, and the only 2 herbalists I buy stuff from. I don't buy herbs from everybody because I feel energy, and I have to really have a special kind of relationship with the herbalists. Like, I know the herbalists that I get stuff from. I've met them in person. I talk to them, not all the time, but I've met them in person, and I've talked to them in person. So I feel their energy. I've been to their seminars and stuff like that. Some of y'all may notice whose herbs I'm using in this video, and I'll talk about that on another video. That's pretty much it. That's how I make my tea. That's how to steep herbs. Simply put, it ain't that deep. It's not hard. And most herbalists will give you their own instructions of how to extract their concoctions through herbal infusion. So, I mean, you can follow their direction, but this is just the basic directions. And most herbalists do start off telling you, like, just do this. They drink this 1 teaspoon per blah, 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 blah. But some herbalists have a steeping time of 25 minutes, and you have to actually boil the herbs because they want the potency of the herbs. And some herbalists, you just have to put it in water that's already hot and let it sit for a minute. But yeah, that's it. This bar is getting on my nerves and showing in my face, so I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here.